Hello everyone, welcome back to Superhero Rewind Unscripted. It's me, Captain Logan, and tonight we're doing something completely different. Instead of a review, I'm going to be taking a look at the backs of boxes of superhero DVDs and Blu-rays. Instead of scraping the bottom of the barrel, we're going to scrape the back of the box. And we're going to try to think a little bit outside the box in taking a look at merchandising and how these things are sold to us and whether or not they really need to be sold to us at all in certain ways. So this is kind of a weird, really different topic, and a thing I thought about just because I have a big superhero movie collection, and this has always been a little bit of a curiosity for me because there doesn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason to the way sometimes the blurbs on the backs of the boxes are written. I know this is a really specific kind of nitty-gritty thing to talk about, but trust me, it's going to be more interesting and more amusing than it might sound. I say there's no rhyme or reason. I guess what I should say is there are kind of some different schools of thought, it seems like, in how these things should be put together, but there's not any particular gold standard, and there does seem to be a bit of a shift over the years in how this tends to be done. So sometimes you'll have synopses, blurbs on the back of the box that are written really minimalistically, because the assumption is you've probably heard of this movie. A lot of these things are really mainstream, and it's unlikely that people would be flipping through a box at a Walmart or a Target and going, oh gee, Richard Donner's Superman, I wonder what that's about, or The Dark Knight. If somebody tells me that it's about a man who puts on a cape and goes and tries to fight crime, and his parents were murdered in an alley, and he's a rich guy with a Batmobile, I'm a lot more likely to buy it than if I just see a picture of a guy with a Batsuit. Everybody knows what Batman is. And so there's, I think, kind of a question as to whether or not some of these things even really need synopses. I guess the tradition of this, with movies in general, of course, goes back to books, paperbacks, and hardcovers, because with literature, you really do need, very often anyway, somebody to give you a log line or a brief synopsis about what it is you might be looking at with the book to make you want to get the thing in the first place. A cover isn't always enough, and books are not always mass-marketed enough, even back when books were mostly the way people were getting their home entertainment. Might not be, you might not see commercials all the time for a book, and arguably there's a lot more stuff, especially, back in the day, back before you could go out and buy movies, vying for your attention, and, these days there's certainly plenty of stuff to stream and buy and go to the theater and see, but there was a time where there was a lot more of a selection with books, and so you would need somebody to write this out and tell you what the thing was about. So we're going to look at a lot of different types of backs of the boxes, and this will watch a little bit like a collection video. I'm obviously not going to go through my entire collection. If you're watching live, first of all, welcome. Thanks for being here. And as always, I'll start taking a look at comments and taking questions after I've gone through this. And so the majority of this video will be, and podcast, will be me going through these things and probably not looking too much at comments, although I might do it a little bit more than I usually do with the reviews, because this is such a different animal and it might be amusing to see what people are saying. So I might interact with you more than I usually would during a review, but also take some questions and comments at the end as well, like I usually do. But anyway, if you are watching this and not just listening to it, you'll see behind me, I've only taken a small amount relative to my collection down from the shelves. So you can see I've pushed some of them over, so there's not a lot of gaps, but you can see it's not full like it usually is. But I've got 60 sitting here next to me, and I probably have 300 in the collection, so it just barely makes a dent. So we're not going to be looking at everything I have, and importantly, we're not going to be looking at mostly the coolest editions of my movies, because usually when you buy special editions, you buy things with slipcovers, or you buy steel books and things like that, you actually don't get these blurbs on the backs of the boxes. Ergo, some of the movies, when we're going to start with a few franchises, and I'm only going to do smatterings. I'm not going to necessarily do every single movie in a franchise, but some of the things that I'm missing here that I will end up not talking about, it's just because I don't have the DVD or the Blu-ray that actually has a synopsis on the back. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Well, and let me also say that you're going to see a lot of DVDs. I have not upgraded everything, and at first when I started putting this together, I was a little bit embarrassed about it. I was like, man, I'm going to get made fun of a lot for this DVD collection, and the fact that so much of this is not Blu-ray or 4K. I have very little 4K. I don't have a 4K player still, and I just haven't prioritized that, and so I'm a real old school collector, a little bit set in my ways with this stuff, and even the things that I will and have upgraded, I've, for the most part, kept the DVDs that I had in the first place, because they're kind of relics now. It's kind of interesting to see how these things were packaged and produced and sold to us when they first came out versus years and decades later, some of them, after they've been in the public consciousness for a lot longer. The attitude about them and about how they should be sold is sometimes quite a bit different. And it'll be interesting to see which of these, first of all, there's an attempt at making it kind of a piece where the box itself is supposed to be like a cool thing all to itself that a collector might want to have, versus another commercial, another way to sell the thing. And sometimes it does both really well. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Welcome if you're watching live. Thanks a bunch for being here. And hi, DJ. Thanks for being there in the comments. We're going to go ahead and start going through these because, like I said, I have 60 of them, and we're going to find some amusing things. I haven't word for word read every single one of these synopses. Some of them I have. A lot of them I picked because of an interesting or cool or strange strategy I found with it in, again, how the things are being sold to us. Some of it is because of weird mistakes I found. Some of it is because the people or whoever was hired to write the blurb clearly hadn't seen the movie or didn't know enough about the thing. So a lot of different relics and examples of this that we're going to look at today. We're going to look at a lot of old stuff, a lot of new stuff, and everything in between. So we're going to start with franchises, and the first one is going to be, of course, my favorite superhero movie of all time, Batman Begins. And let's take a look at how this movie was packaged and sold to us. So I do have a really pretty box set that has the Blu-rays for the entire Nolan trilogy, and I did go ahead and keep these, and I'm glad I did, at least for no other reason than this exercise. So a lot of these, of course, are going to be sold on one of the big tactics will be we went and found critics that are mainstream critics that love the movie, or that we can kind of tweak it and make seem like they loved the movie with a quick quote. Sometimes it's one word, sometimes it's a whole sentence. Usually, and I'm getting ahead of myself because we'll see some of this, but usually if it's one word, it's because a movie was not real well liked and they were able to, maybe out of context, find a single word that in a really generic way makes the thing seem more exciting than it actually is. And sometimes that actually happens because a thing is really acclaimed and well liked, and they don't feel like they need more than one word. That happens as well. This is an example of a movie that, I should say, a box that is handled in the spirit of the movie, and that very often doesn't happen. So at the top, it's Mike LaSalle from the San Francisco Chronicle, and in quotes it says, fantastic, emotional, genuinely gripping, and that's not dirty pool, that's not false advertising. Roger Ebert said things similar to that. A lot of critics said things like that, so already we're to a good start. And then here's what the blurb says. In Batman Begins, a acclaimed director Christopher Nolan explores the origins of the legendary Dark Knight. The really important words and phrases and titles are usually in all caps with these, and just to be silly, I want to yell them, but I won't. Kind of interesting that in that first sentence we already have the phrase Dark Knight, even though this came out before we knew the title of the sequel, and that is not intentional. I've told this story before, but I have a poster that's like a long, like door poster. It's supposed to be like kind of the dimensions of a door that says Dark Knight on the bottom of it, and it's a Batman Begins poster, not a Dark Knight poster. And if you saw it, you'd go, oh, a Dark Knight poster, until you realized that what you were, and it doesn't say The Dark Knight, it just says Dark Knight at the bottom. And you would assume that it was about that movie, unless you noticed that he's wearing the suit from Batman Begins. In the wake of his parents' murders, disillusioned heir Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale, travels the world seeking the means to fight injustice and turn fear against those who prey on the fearful. I mean, we're just taking lines directly out of the movie. Again, not false advertising. This seems to be pretty well in line with the movie, and somebody actually watched it. I always wonder who writes these. With the help of, and if creators of these things ever get any say at all in how these things are packaged. With the help of his trusted butler Alfred, Michael Caine, Detective Jim Gordon, Gary Oldman, and his ally Lucius Fox, Morgan Freeman, Wayne returns to Gotham City and unleashes his alter ego, Batman, a masked crusader who uses strength, intellect, and an array of high-tech weaponry to fight the sinister forces that threaten the city. Pretty spot on. That's what it's about. Surprisingly gets even into the theme and the main idea driving the story, but also the crux of the plot. And the big question with a thing like this, so I really like the way this is put together. The big question, and I also like that this box is all Batman. Batman Begins, we don't have a picture of a Scarecrow, we don't have a picture of Ra's al Ghul, nothing. This was one of the movie posters, and then on the back, you've got one of the scenes where Batman is perching, and it's a lot of brown, which is one of the big colors kind of used in that movie, and in the advertising, especially with the posters. So yeah, and on the front it has Ebert and Roper, one of the year's best films, Two Thumbs Way Up. Again, they both loved it, and I really like the way this is packaged. The big question in the way that blurb is written that you got to ask yourself is how necessary this is, and if anybody reads these things. But I really like that it's not being sold so hard as a superhero movie, but it also doesn't forget that it's a superhero movie. I will move faster as we go along, but there's going to be a little bit of setup just for the styles and different kinds of blurbs that we're going to get as we go along. So that's Batman Begins. We're going to skip Dark Knight because I've got that in a steelbook, and also in that other, I've got Dark Knight in a couple cool ways. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and go to Rises now. And Rises takes the opposite tack, where it does put some quotes from critics, but it doesn't tell you whatsoever anything about what the movie is about. And this is just the standard, well, this says 2-disc special edition, so I don't know what the regular Blu-ray or DVD looks like for this, so maybe there's one that does have a blurb on the back. Of course, there's different releases, and they're handled in different ways, but this one just says, brilliant and masterful filmmaking, and then somebody from the New York Post gives it 4 stars, says spectacular, and Richard Corliss says an epic achievement. So no sense from this about the polarizing nature of this movie, the fact that not all critics felt the same way about it. It put out a lot like Dark Knight was, and Begins is interesting because it was kind of beloved by critics, but not everybody went and saw it, and so there's maybe more of an attempt to get you to buy it than there is with something like this that goes, I mean, you know what the Nolan Batman movies are. These are beloved. Dark Knight was the second coming of Christ. You're going to buy this, right? And so, of course, if anybody said great things about it and it didn't bomb at the box office, we're going to treat it like it's Dark Knight again. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, because it's not pretending like it was more liked by some of these people than it was. Of course, it was polarizing before anything, and I'm not going to expect somebody to put out a movie that says, not everybody loved this, but maybe you might. Like, there's a place where being too truthful is kind of a stupid business move and not a thing that you would ever expect anybody to do. But yeah, I like the packaging of this one fine. I'm not going to sit here and just review the boxes. I pretty much just want to talk about how these blurbs are written and why sometimes you don't even really have them. And I'm just waiting for my computer to catch up. Okay, so I am still broadcasting, but something has happened with my camera. So everybody give me just a second. I'm going to try to fix this. Man, sometimes with this machine, if I make the wrong move, things get unplugged. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Everybody give me just a minute here. And hopefully I can get this thing to restart here. Can folks hear me right now? Please let me know if you can. If not, we may have to start things over. I hope that doesn't happen. Please let me know in the comments right now if you can see, or if you can hear me. You're not going to be able to see me right now. Yeah, I am having some issues here. Okay, so people can hear me, but you're not able to see my camera. Yeah, I'm stuck. Okay. Thanks, folks. Yeah, I see that. Okay, everybody give me... Okay, I'm going to try to fix this, and everybody please just bear with me for a few minutes. Okay, folks, it looks like I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so thanks a lot for your patience, and sorry that this is as kind of haphazard and crazy as it has been so far. We're only 2 of these in. Let's see if we can start moving a little bit quicker, shall we? All right, so now we're going to move on to Deadpool, and Deadpool is another example of a movie that is sold very much in line with the tone of the movie, and it's hard to believe that Ryan Reynolds didn't have a lot to do with how the packaging was put together with these, because we know he had so much to do with the advertising in commercials and TV spots and the trailers and everything. So this reads like you might expect. It's very fourth wall breaking. It's very much in the voice of Deadpool. So it says, hold on to your chimichangas, folks. So get a big major Deadpool kind of catchphrase sort of thing in there right away. He doesn't really bring up chimichangas more than I think once in that movie, but that's a big meme kind of Deadpool comic thing. From the studio that brought you all 3 Taken films, that's on point with the comedy, that's funny, comes Deadpool, the blockbusting fourth wall breaking masterpiece about Marvel Comics' sexiest anti-hero, me. So it's going to start getting real sexual. It's going to have a lot of sexual innuendo, and it's going to be self-aggrandizing and talk about how great it is, of course. Go deep inside, deep sexual innuendo. He says, I love that. My origin story, typical stuff, rogue experiment, accelerating healing powers, horrible disfigurement, red spandex, imminent revenge, directed by Overpaid Tool, Tim Miller. Overpaid Tool is in the credits at the beginning of that movie, so stuff from the movie is here even in the jokes, and starring God's Perfect Idiot, Ryan Reynolds, also in those opening credits, Ed Skrein, Marina Baccarin, etc., etc. Deadpool is a giddy slice of awesomeness, packed with more twists than My Enemy's Intestines and more action than Prom Night Amazeballs. So again, really on point with the comedy and the tone, and if you bothered to read this, I mean, it's in super tiny font, you might not even think to do that. That's a thing that we'll run into a lot, where it's like, it's so small, would anybody even think to look at it unless they just were curious to see how this was put together, or, you know, while they're looking at it, oh gee, I wonder what's on the box, because I might buy this as a collector. I want the one that has the coolest, packaging. Or a person who really doesn't know all that much about Deadpool, maybe a parent trying to figure out if this is, even though it's rated R, if it's okay for their kid, or for like a teenager. Oh, it's got a lot of sex stuff in it. I don't like some of the crass humor. Maybe I won't get this. So it's really good advertising, because it tells you, like I said, it's in line with the tone of the thing, but it also gives you a sense of content, and it tells you what the movie is actually about. And then Betty White calls it the best picture of the year, and says, I give it 4 Golden Girls. So they have a lot of synergy with the advertising through this movie, because she was in some of the ads and things. She was in at least a YouTube video, and they used her to sell the thing a little bit. So that one is, in a weird way, handled a lot like the Batman Begins one, but just with, of course, that Deadpool tone. The viral advertising is what I was trying to think of. And then, with a little bit of contrast, we have Once Upon a Deadpool, which, by the way, you guys will notice, some of these things I've not taken out of the shrink wrap, because I bought them for the collection and just haven't had a chance to go back to these movies, or some of them I just haven't really felt the need to sit down and watch again. I did see this in the theater once, and thought it was a fun recut. It's not the best recut, but it's interesting, and and funny, and I don't know if it really is PG-13 enough for kids, but I digress. So Once Upon a Deadpool, a fairy tale twist on Deadpool 2, the whole gang can enjoy in glorious PG-13. That's amusing. And then on the back, instead of a big blurb that explains what the movie is, this is going, we figure the only people that will buy this are the people that already own Deadpool 2. So even if you want to get this for somebody a little younger to watch, they're kind of banking that this is a supplementary pickup, that you might be buying it because you've seen that movie and you're curious to see that recut, or because you've got a kid that you're okay with looking at this. From the studio that brought you Anastasia and Ever After, that's funny because it's fairy tale type stuff, and jokes are always funnier when you explain them, comes a fairy tale that doesn't go by the book. Everyone's favorite disreputable superhero. I don't know why superhero is in 2 words and capitalized superhero. You'll see that a lot with these discs, by the way. And it's a thing that Marvel used to do decades ago with comics, but I think the standard now, especially because this is a whole genre, the standard now is superhero. It's a lowercase s, lowercase h. It's one word, and yeah, I guess I'll rant for just a second about this versus video game. I don't know how gamers that might be watching this feel about this whole thing, but I've always thought superhero should be one word. Video games, I feel like it's almost pretentious to put them together and make it one word. Video game. I don't know. That maybe sounds like an arbitrary opinion, but I never understood that. I see that sometimes. Video game is one word. The superhero really is one word. I don't know. Returns with a twist on Deadpool 2 that the whole gang can enjoy. I like, sort of, maybe. But anyway, so that's that one. And then let's get into, again, we're going to be in franchises for just a little bit. So Kick-Ass versus Kick-Ass 2. One of these was well-liked, one of these was not at all. So Kick-Ass, and I've always really liked this box. I've got the nice kind of slip cover with it. On the back, it's very, very minimalistic and simple, and selling itself a lot more on the visual of these characters and kind of the comedic but gritty tone. One of the most wildly entertaining, crowd-pleasing action films since Kill Bill, says NYC Movie Guru, in such a tiny font that I had to really look close. So they don't actually really care who it was that said that. It was just a good enough quote that they could sell the whole movie on it. And they just have your bonus features at the bottom, of course. And by the way, not going through what all the bonus features are with these things. We're not fully critiquing the presentation entirely of the boxes so much as just looking at what is written on the back to make you want to get the thing. So that's a decent strategy. I do think it's interesting that it doesn't, and the slipcover is exactly the same as the regular box. There's nothing on it that tells you what it's about. So it feels really confident that it figures that anybody that might grab this probably saw it in the theater. I guess they thought it did well enough that we didn't have to hinge too much on home video. Although I should say that at this point, we were already not really hinging too much on home video because these things don't sell super well, and they're selling at a fraction of what they did in the early 2000s before streaming really picked up. So, home video, as far as people watching stuff after it goes to the theater, is really super important, but not necessarily the hard copies. I'm going to go ahead and take a pause for a second and read a couple super chats. I'm handling this, like I said, a little bit differently than I usually do with the reviews, and I can't use the other scene of me because I'm still frozen on that, apparently. But let me go ahead and read a couple of these super chats. Tom, $5 super chat. Have you seen the new box designs where they use a quote from the movie, but it looks like a review? Yeah, now that you say that, I guess so. I hadn't really thought about that, but it's in quotation marks and it's presented kind of like you get the review quotes, but it's actually a quote from the movie. I don't mind that. I was actually in the last few scripted rewinds doing that for Superhero Rewind. I kind of like the presentation of that. But yeah, that's a good point. And then Matthew Mertens, $9.99 super chat. Sorry, a bit off topic, but for a long time I've wondered if you'd ever do a superhero rewind for the Iron Giant, or do you personally not count that as a superhero film? Was just wondering. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to try to stay on topic as much as possible, but Iron Giant is a thing I've always been kind of on the fence about. Haven't watched it in a really long time. I did recently get a request on Patreon for the request for the Iron Giant, and so I at least am going to have a review of some kind in a couple, 3 months on the channel about that, but I don't know if it will be a rewind. Possibly, eventually. If I watch that and I'm kind of enough interest is sparked in giving it, this kind of treatment, where I go a little bit more fine-tooth combed, it's just me, I might do that. And I have gotten requests for that in the past. Okay, so next up is Kick-Ass 2, and this one, clearly the makers of this movie or of this DVD, this box, realize that nobody saw this movie and feel the need to sell it a little bit harder. And again, this is a real common occurrence where a movie that didn't do as well, there are a lot more words on the box, and it feels the need to tell you more about what it's about. And a little bit later, we're going to do a whole swath of kind of maligned and infamous superhero movies, and many of them have a lot of words on the box. If you watch Red Letter Media and their series Best of the Worst, this is a thing you'll see a lot with B-horror and action movies that are real small and and people don't know about, and movies that aren't confident in the material, that know that they're not great, that know that they're kind of duds, where it's just paragraphs upon paragraphs saying if it looks really complicated, maybe somebody will watch it, which seems kind of counterintuitive to me. This says self-made superhero Kick-Ass, and I'm going to stop reading the names of the actors just for the sake of time. And sweet-faced, foul-mouthed assassin Hit Girl try to return to life as normal teenagers, but soon they are faced with their deadliest challenge yet to seek revenge for his father's death. Red Mist has reinvented himself as the leader of an evil league of supervillains. You notice we don't use his supervillain name because it's a swear word, and they can't get away with putting that on this. To defeat their new nemesis, I mean, if I was going to write this, I would have made it like a red band DVD, and the whole box would be in red, and it would have like 55 F-bombs on the back. That would sell it. I wouldn't actually do that, of course, because, a kid might pick that up at a Walmart. But to defeat their new nemesis, Kick-Ass and Hit Girl must team up with a new wave of masked crusaders, led by the badass Colonel Stars and Stripes, in this battle of real-life villains and heroes. So, yeah, not horribly written, certainly accurate, and tells you what the movie is about, and it's not horribly wordy, but it felt the need to actually have a whole synopsis, unlike the first movie, and it sounds like a much better movie than it actually ends up being. So somebody was doing their level best with material that maybe they realized was not the best. Okay, now we're going to take a look at all 3 Raimi Spider-Man movies, because the way these are presented evolves. So with the first movie, Back of the Box, no synopsis whatsoever. It tells you the special features because this is 2002, in the early days of DVD, where it was a really big deal that you got commentary and that you got the music videos, and that you got documentaries and things like that. So really minimalistic box. It gives you a shot of a really major scene that you'll remember from this movie, and like, who didn't see this? They go, well, this broke records. It made like $90 million opening weekend, which was huge back then, and everybody's gonna buy this. So we're just going to make it look like the big epic thing that everybody felt like it was. And then the second movie is handled pretty similarly, but it does feel the need to, I say feel the need, maybe it's just kind of a pride thing, where it does give you a quote on the top from a critic that loved it, in this case Roger Ebert, best superhero movie I've ever seen. I don't know, if Roger Ebert said that about my movie, I would also probably put it on the box. I'm not going to begrudge them that certainly, and once again, the most of the back of the box is taken up with the special features and all the cool extras that you get with this. Spider-Man 3 is a different story. So at the top, you have another quote, and this one is from Scott Mantz from Access Hollywood. Spidey's back and better than ever. So now we've got to go with something really generic. We've gone from best superhero movie the nation's top critic has ever seen to, well, they made another one, and one guy says it's better, but not that the movie is necessarily, just Spidey, right? That's not necessarily saying that he liked this movie better. I haven't read his review than he liked the other two, but just Spidey's back and better than ever. And then it does have a synopsis. Peter Parker finally has the girl of his dreams, Mary Jane Watson, and New York City is in the throes of Spider-Mania. But when we didn't have to make that show because we did Marvel Mania and the Spider-Man movies were in there. But when a strange alien symbiote turns Spider-Man's suit black, his darkest demons come to light, changing Spider-Man inside as well as out. Spider-Man is in for the fight of his life against a lethal mix of villains, the Deadly Sandman, Venom, and the New Goblin, as well as the enemy within himself. So it does read like a cartoon episode, and it feels like whoever is writing this is kind of struggling to make it feel as smart as the first two movies and like it's as accessible as those. But I guess I like, as well as the enemy within himself, at least it's trying to get something thematic in there. Like at first it reads, superhero has to fight a couple of villains that team up, but he also has to fight himself. So maybe it's about something. I mean, yeah, it is. It's just, not handled the best. So you kind of an interesting progression there. Okay, so then we'll look at some MCU. So here is Thor: The Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok. Look at the pretty box, the pretty kind of lenticular cover that you get for Ragnarok. The only reason I'm not showing the first Thor is because I lost my copy years ago, and I still haven't found it. When Eric and I did the first round of Marvel Mania, we had to get a copy some other way. I can't remember how we did it. That was back before Disney Plus and before it was streaming anywhere. And Eric went to my shelf and was like, hey, Cap, you don't have Thor. Maybe we used his copy. Maybe he had one. I was like, really? I don't. And I've just never rebought it. I don't know why. Anyway, so here's Thor: The Dark World. It gives you, this is early MCU, and so not only does it actually give you a synopsis, and a lot of these later on will give you a real short log line that's like a sentence or two, or no synopsis at all, but this one not only will give you a synopsis, but it also feels the need to say, from the studio that brought you the #1 superhero movie of all time, again, superhero spaced out, capital S, capital H, superhero movie of all time, Marvel's The Avengers. Got to get Marvels in front of that every time so that we don't conflate it with the British TV show The Avengers. Comes another must-own epic blockbuster starring Chris Hemsworth as the mighty Thor. When you start saying must own, it's probably not as good as the others. You're protesting too much, but this is still early enough, even though Avengers has come out, that we're still reminding everybody that these Marvel movies are all in the same universe, and that will kind of stop doing after a while. We will keep saying Marvel's whatever, just for the sake of branding, but after a while, nobody's gonna forget that these are all MCU things. And then you go to Ragnarok, and it doesn't have any of that. It just has a big epic shot of lots of the characters that are in the movie on the back, and says, and basically is telling you with that picture that this will be a lot of fun. Whether you really like this movie or not, I think this is exactly the right way to sell this particular film. And on the back it just says epic, John Boone E.T. Online, and this is one of those cases where it's a single word to sell a thing that was actually really well liked. Even though I don't care for this movie, this is not one of those cases where it's one word because it sucks, because a lot of people don't think that this movie is bad, and this is maybe one of those cases where it does make a lot of sense to use one single word out of context, and I would be surprised if that review somehow used the word epic but didn't like the movie. Next up, let's go to some Ninja Turtles movies. Again, we're not going to look at all of them. This is the first DVD release. There have been many of them since then, and this one does have a synopsis on the back, like a paperback novel. Now you can catch America's favorite green teens in their first live-action blockbuster film. Kind of weird to word it that way when this is a DVD release like a decade after the movie first came out. Almost like it's pretending like it's still 1990 and like this is the VHS. Although it's possible that they're using the synopsis from the VHS. I don't have that sitting in front of me, and I wish I did, because I do still have that. Maybe we should have done some VHSs with this. That would have been cool, but I didn't think to bring those over. Is it back behind me? I don't want to waste any more time getting up and grabbing things. But anyway, after waiting in a puddle of radioactive waste, these radical reptiles are transformed into New York City's greatest crime-fighting quartet. I think the cheesiness and the alliteration is appropriate in this case, featuring a soundtrack with MC Hammer. Well, sort of. MC Hammer is... Does this have a soundtrack with MC Hammer? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just thinking for a minute. I don't remember there actually being any MC Hammer songs in the movie. Are there? Because of course Vanilla Ice was the way we sold the second movie, and that's actually directly in the movie. But is Hammer in the movie? And the big rap that the movie is remembered for, that's in the credits at the end, is not MC Hammer. This film will captivate adults and kids alike with its blend of humor, camaraderie, good word choice, and martial arts action. Don't miss this blockbuster movie. You'll have one shell of a good time. Yeah, and so a little bit lacking in self-awareness, I think, because this is another one of those movies where most people that would think to buy this are well aware of what it is, especially a decade after it initially comes out. And I don't love, like, don't miss this blockbuster movie. Like, I own it, and it's kind of selling it too hard. I want some kind of... And yeah, I'm criticizing this. If I'm putting a thing like this together, I would try to find a sweet spot, like walk a line between using the synopsis to sell the movie and making it a piece in and of itself like Batman Begins did, so that once you own it, you don't feel like you're still being sold it, if that makes any sense. That's kind of the sweet spot, because this is not a thing you're going to throw away. This is different than like a box that an action figure comes in, that you might take the action figure out and play with. I'm gonna hang on to this. I'm still gonna have this. Now let's look at TMNT, shall we? So pizza all over the back of the box. So it's selling it kind of as a cartoon, even though this falls into the animated film category much more than it falls into the cartoon category. They're back and they're ready to kick some shell. So we really like using like kick shell or shell of a good time, like replacing expletives with shell. It is the year of the turtle, as everyone's favorite hard-shelled heroes finally meet their match. When is that true? Was it actually Year of the Turtle that year, or were they just saying that because we finally got a turtle movie? I wonder. An army of old foes and ancient monsters under the command of a mysterious tycoon threatens New York. We're not going to use the name of that character because he's not a real compelling or menacing villain. And then I love that it says, mysterious tycoon threatens New York. The very next line is Patrick Stewart, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Patrick Stewart is that tycoon. He is kind of the villain of the piece, although, spoiler alert, he'll kind of be redeemed by the end. But I think it's really funny. They're like, Patrick Stewart is the villain. Nah, they just go, here are voices by... It's kind of the way Illumination sells their movies, right? Like, here are voices of actors that you know, and they're in this movie. We're not even going to bother telling you who they are. And then get this. So, Patrick Stewart, Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's April, and Lawrence Fishburne lend their voices to this powerful, action-packed thrill ride. Little generic, not a great blurb. Better, this movie is better than that. It's too good for that blurb, I think. But I love putting Lawrence Fishburne in there because they just tapped him at the 11th hour to do the voiceover for the announcer at the beginning of the movie. You might think that he's going to be an actor, like Silver Surfer or something. Nope. He's not going to be a major character. Okay, and then here is Ninja Turtles 2014. I got squint real hard to read this one. At the top it says, any way you slice it, Ninja Turtles delivers. I don't know who said that. It doesn't tell me. Although it has a 1. I think that's a 1. So wait, does it say somewhere toward the bottom who said that? I don't see it anywhere. But I was thinking for a second that maybe it was a footnote on a box for a movie. I'm not sure. So yeah, any way you slices it, Ninja Turtles delivers. I think it's really funny that it's possible that whoever wrote that saw an early screening before the title was changed. Maybe, or maybe the title was changed before anybody was able to see a screening. That is actually possible, or likely. But I just think it's really funny that the thing ended up being called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because originally it was supposed to just be called Ninja Turtles, and then the quote. I'm gonna say quote in quotes because I don't know if that's a quote. The quote at the top of the box, it's like they themselves wrote that quote back when it was still called Ninja Turtles. Okay, so gotta squint real hard to be able to read this blurb. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are bigger and better than ever. Bigger, yes. I agree with half of that. In this blockbuster hit, loaded with nonstop action and laughs. I mean, okay. Maybe somebody found this more funny than I did. When New York City is in trouble, it's up to these 4 ninja-fighting, pizza-loving brothers to save it. I mean, you might as well just make the whole blurb on the back of the box the '87 cartoon intro. You might as well say, "When the evil Shredder attacks, these ninja boys..." Like, okay. Aided by determined reporter April O'Neil, Megan Fox, and their wise master Splinter, no credit, these unlikely heroes must face their ultimate nemesis, the evil Shredder, or a corporate tycoon guy who's the real villain, and we couldn't make him the Shredder because we were afraid that fans would get mad and that we would get complaints about whitewashing. But anyway, so yeah, that's about what I would have expected with this. Somebody kind of tried to make this sound appealing, but sometimes you can read between the lines and you can tell that they know what it is that they're writing about. Okay, so then let's do, I don't know, a couple more franchises here. Let's get into X-Men. So this one will be fun. Here is, and again, one of these kind of shiny holofoil covers. Not lenticular, but all shiny. This is the one for X2. And on the back, it just says 2 thumbs up, Ebert and Roper. Now, I don't remember Ebert being super enthusiastic about these, so like he gave it a thumbs up, but I think it was kind of a half-hearted thumbs up. I really don't think he would have put an exclamation point if it had been up to him. So this has a much more minimalistic blurb on the bottom. Following a shocking attack of the president, the X-Men must stand united. Interesting word choice, given that United will be in the title of the next film, of this film. With their deadliest enemies to combat a nemesis that threatens every mutant on the planet and possibly all of mankind. You know, that's accurate, actually, because we're going to kind of... Professor X is going to flip back and forth, where he's targeting mutants and then he's targeting humans. So, yeah, there's a chance that one of those subsects is going to get destroyed. So, I don't know. I guess possibly all of mankind is maybe a little bit misleading, because it's probably going to be just the mankind but not mutant kind part, but I digress. Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, and Halle Berry lead an all-star cast in this dazzling action-packed spectacle that is arguably the greatest superhero movie ever, according to Entertainment Weekly. At this time, I would have agreed with that, arguably. That's not a bad blurb. I don't mind that. It's, once again, you know, kind of small print, put toward the bottom. Like, we don't know if anybody's going to read this, but, you know, just in case you need to know something about this movie, like, here it is. But here's what's interesting. Let's contrast it now, and this is the only one I'm going to do this with, oh, you know what? I thought I had it in here. One second. Where did I put... Yes, here it is. Sorry, I had these a little bit out of order. Let's contrast it with the German version. So I went to Germany in 2017, and I found a DVD shop there, a movie shop, and I decided I was going to get a couple of American movies in German because I wanted the boxes and because I wanted to try to find a player I could put them in. and see how they were handled. So, and I actually haven't put this in a player. I should. But anyway, so this is X-Men 2, because I guess in Germany they were afraid if they called it X2, nobody would know what it was. So maybe it wasn't quite as popular there. So this was X-Men 2, and we have a different set of characters on the front than we do for the American box. So here you have 5 characters, and here you only have 3. So you only have 3. So the German box sold it on Wolverine and Nightcrawler and Rogue. Okay, it's an interesting choice. Rogue is not as prominently featured as she is in the first movie, but okay. But here, and I'm not going to read the German blurb on the back. I am not fluent. I would know some of these words. I did take German in college, but I'm not going to do that. But although I do like that they keep putting X in front of things, explosive, extreme, it's great. But the X-Men sind zurück. Anyway, but what I do find interesting is that this movie, the blurb here doesn't mention Stryker, and it just says that there's a menace that threatens every mutant on the planet. Well, Stryker would be that menace, and he's not on the box. But he is on this box, so the Germans appreciate Stryker like I do, and better than these foolish Americans. Anyway, alright, so moving on now to X-Men 3. Video game secrets, that's Jason. Actually, X2 is X-Men United. Oh, that's true! It is X-Men United. Thank you. I'm sorry. I momentarily had a brain freeze and forgot about that. I'm glad you said that, Jason. Thanks, man. Also, isn't it way past your bedtime? Did your mom say you could stay up? What are you doing? I guess tomorrow's a holiday. Anyway, thanks everybody, by the way, for sticking around and hanging out with me. We are almost an hour into this, partly because of the technical difficulty I had, and I'm finding myself having more to say about these boxes than I thought I would. So if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to pace yourself. You know, pause it, come back to it later. Okay, so now we have The Last Stand, X3, X-Men 3, however you want to say it. Adrenaline-fueled fun, says the New York Daily News. So once again, we're back to really generic quote for a movie that was not real well liked and didn't do as well as the last one. Experience the awesome power of the X-Men's epic final battle. That's interesting, because of course we're going to make a bazillion more of these, and it won't be too long before we go back in time and do X-Men Origins. So I guess chronologically, this is the final battle for actually quite a while, if you really think about it, because we'll get some more X-Men movies, but it won't be till Days of Future Past that we go past this. But anyway, I don't know, just in hindsight, it's always amusing when that kind of thing is said. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't assume that we're not going to make any more X-Men movies after this, no matter what the producers or the studio or directors say. Join well-known mutant heroes and villains and meet a cadre of, good word choice, of all new warriors, including Angel, Beast, Juggernaut, and Colossus, in this thrilling, explosive adventure. See, the Germans were more creative, because they said explosive with like a big X in front of it. You know, like Egghead would do it with eggs, but here, they just spelled it normally. Like, that's what I call a missed opportunity. After a controversial cure is discovered. Why is cure in air quotes? Because didn't the cure, like, kind of work? After a controversial cure is... Well, I guess... Okay, that's funny, because we think the cure works, but the only way that you would know that it doesn't entirely is if you get all the way to the end or all the way to the end of the movie, and not the end credits, but like the very end of the movie where Magneto seems to be getting his powers back. Spoiler alert for, you know, pretty old movie. So that's almost a spoiler. Like, in the synopsis. Mutants can choose to retain their superhuman abilities or give up their unique gifts and become normal. Whoever wrote this really likes air quotes. When peaceful mutant leader Charles Xavier clashes with his militant counterpart Magneto, the battle lines are drawn for the war to end all wars, or the skirmish to end all skirmishes, bursting with non-stop action, spectacular special effects, and exclusive special features. X-Men: The Last Stand is a force of nature that will blow you away, according to somebody in NY 7 in New York Times, NYT, New York Times. Okay, I think it's really funny that the blurb feels the need to bring up the special features, where it's like that's almost kind of desperate to me. It's like right underneath it tells you what the special features are. Okay, let's see just for the fun of it what we did with Origins. Sensational and spectacular. So we like to use some generic S words to say, no, really, this movie is great, you guys. I'm pretty sure they're not going to bring up that the claws look CG and super fake all the way through the movie. Heroic Hugh Jackman. Okay, so right away we're doing kind of the antithesis to Dark Knight at the beginning and to Deadpool, where this doesn't fit the tone of the material at all. We're going, oh, it's a superhero movie. Those are goofy and silly fun, right? Heroic Hugh Jackman. And I mean, like, this isn't a good movie, and it is very silly, but it's also really self-serious, and it doesn't want you to think that it's as silly as it is. Heroic Hugh Jackman breathes the fire into Wolverine, Miami Herald, with a vengeance. That's terrible. Breathes the fire. You thought that quote was good enough to put in your 2-paragraph blurb? Like, as part of the explanation of what the movie is about? Okay. This pulse-pounding action thriller sinks razor-sharp adamantium claws into the mysterious origins of Logan/Wolverine. Yep, it sure does. It gets all retroactive and prequelitis, and I don't want to review it again. He especially his epically violent and romantic past. Epically? All right. His complex relationship with Victor Creed / Sabretooth and the ominous Weapon X program. It's way less interesting than it used to be. I'm adding that. That unleashes his primal fury. Along the way, Wolverine also encounters legendary new mutants, including Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, and Gambit, Taylor Kitsch. You'll go berserker. I keep saying air quotes. It's written, it's not air quotes, but the quotes. For this deeper, darker, more spectacular than ever chapter of the X-Men saga. The blurb is as crappy as the movie, folks. That is maybe the worst one we've found so far. That was one I had not read all the way through. It's rough. It's bad. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at Days of Future Past and look at a better X-Men movie and how this was handled. So it feels the need to put a blurb at the top, but a very small print. As we go along, we get more and more recent. These boxes continue to more and more go, nobody's going to read these. We'll just put them there in case you want to pick up a magnifying glass and you really don't know anything about this movie. And this is a somewhat, complex, I don't want to say convoluted necessarily, I love this movie, plot that it's kind of tough to put in a small paragraph. So let's see what we said. I should have gotten a magnifying glass. X-Men Unite! An all-star cast, but not X-Men United. As we learned from my son, that was the second movie, not this second movie. Although I guess that's kind of funny, because this is the second in the prequel franchise, and it put Unite in there, and United was the second of the... Anyway, an all-star cast. We really like saying that, don't we? Making a really big deal out of people have heard of these actors. Hugh Jackman, James McAvoy, everybody in this movie, you guys, assembles and prepares for battle in this awesome adventure packed with non-stop action and excitement. So this is a case where whoever wrote this blurb maybe doesn't even think this movie is as good as I do, or doesn't realize, like, how well received this movie is. Because I'm going to backtrack for a second and say, I don't always know how much of the work with these is done before the movie is out of theaters and before it's known how well or not well received these things are. So, if you're taking a shot in the dark and you're going... I mean, I would think you'd put your best foot forward and play it like, this was heralded as a great movie, but maybe not an achievement. You'd want to be careful and not start throwing around the word masterpiece, even if you had an early review that said it, in case everybody else hated it. So you have to be kind of careful about that, but it's weird how generic this one is written for a movie that was well-liked and that seemed to be breathing new life into this franchise. We all know how that worked out, but that's what it seemed like in the moment. As armies of murderous sentinel robots hunt down mutants and humans alike, we're not going to mention that that's all happening in the future and that this is a time travel epic? Okay. The unstoppable characters from the original X-Men film trilogy join forces with their younger selves. Okay, there we go. In an epic struggle to change the past and save our future. Not a great blurb, I gotta be honest with you. And again, it reads like somebody's thinking this is not going to be well loved. That's interesting. Okay, moving right along. I just want to point out RoboCop 2 and 3 for a second. I don't even want to read these. I just want to say the backs of these boxes are awful because they're really hard to read. Like, why would you put this much text in your blurb if you're going to make it so difficult to even see it? You've got these lines going through, and I get what they're doing. They're like, oh, it's RoboCop vision. But you've got these lines that are almost crossing out words as you're going. Why would you do that? I'll just read the quotes from the critics at the top of these. RoboCop 2, intriguing, fresh. The special effects are, in brackets, compelling. The Village View. I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. It seems like they might have been scraping for a positive quote, and I really wonder what that sentence actually said when they had put R in brackets. That's a little bit strange. And then Entertainment Today for RoboCop 3 said big on action and effects. Even more vague and generalized. Okay, let's look at some Batman animated things while we're still in franchises. This one I wanted to bring up just because it's the only double feature I pulled out, and sometimes you'll get a blurb on one of these double features that will talk about the movies together, so it's going to be different than either of these movies packaged alone. Twice the Fight, 2 feature-length Dark Knight Adventures. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and it's just for one thing that I find really amusing. Cold-blooded crime comes to Gotham City. Arch-villain Mr. Freeze kidnaps Batgirl, and the Dark Knight and Robin scramble to rescue her before she's forever iced. Gotta have the ice puns. The movie, anyway, was put out right around Batman and Robin. I think part of the reason we went with Mr. Freeze is because that was happening, if I'm remembering it correctly. I'm pretty sure that was right around there. In the animated chiller thriller movie, Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero. Ultra cool style, I'll agree with that, but again, ice puns, and excitement continue in the theatrical feature. Batman... Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. That was the start of... Okay, I thought we were still talking about Sub-Zero, so let me start this again. Ultra... Because we said cool, so I thought it was an ice pun, but it's not an ice pun. Ultra cool style and excitement continue in the theatrical feature Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where we meet a hunted criminal named Batman. Accused of murders carried out by a sinister masked figure, Batman is determined to clear his name. Okay, so I won't read the rest of this, but... Sub-Zero is on the left, Mask of the Phantasm is on the right. Whoever put this together really thinks Sub-Zero came out before Mask of the Phantasm. That's hilarious, and the blurb on the back of the box just doubles down on it. Wow, I can't even believe that kind of a mistake happened with a thing like this. Like, who do they get to put this together? Why are they expecting you to watch Sub-Zero first? This is a flip disc, and whenever the movie's on, one movie is on one side of the disc, and then you flip it over, and the other one's on the other side. And every time I put this in, I end up with the wrong side up, because it's backwards. And I think it's really funny that they don't think it's backwards. And then we have Mystery of the Batwoman, which is a full-length movie. Isn't that exciting? The Dark Knight is back in this all-new feature-length thriller. The Penguin and Rupert Thorne. So this is a thing that we do a lot, specifically with these animated movies, where all of the characters that you've maybe heard of, or I guess just are in the movie, Rupert Thorne! Somebody's going to buy this based on Rupert Thorne! I guess if you're a big animated series fan and you haven't seen that character in a while, you might be like, yeah, yay, it's Rupert Thorne! I gotta spend $20 on this! But they'll put the character names in big letters and make them a different color. You see that here, you see that in... Under the Red Hood doesn't do it, it just bolds them. But, yeah, okay, so later on we start bolding it, because we're doing that with these other two. But anyway, is that the only reason I wanted to bring this one up? The blurb for this is trying to make it sound a lot more exciting than I think it is. I don't think this is a very good movie, and it's doing its best. Everything's in exclamation points. It's a big, exciting, fun cartoon movie for kids. And then, I'm going to start moving a little bit quicker here. Under the Red Hood, Dare to Look Under the Hood. I just brought this one up because this is another example of a movie that, of a blurb that really downplays how liked this movie is and how good it is. In Batman Under the Red Hood, Batman faces his ultimate challenge as the mysterious Red Hood takes Gotham City by firestorm. It's a good word choice. One part vigilante, one part criminal kingpin. It's a nice alliteration there. Red Hood begins cleaning up Gotham City with the efficiency of Batman, but without following the same ethical code. So this is about what the movie's about. It's authentic. Killing is an option. And when the Joker falls in the balance between the two, hard truths are revealed and old wounds are reopened, featuring a fantastic voice cast headed by Bruce Greenwood, Jensen Ackles, and Neil Patrick Harris. This dazzling DC Universe original animated movie, we gotta throw that in there. So you know the branding of, like, with way too many words of this line. The DC Universe original animated movie. Twists and turns through action-packed battles and exciting surprises for a thrill ride. Boy, we're using that word a lot with these, aren't we? You can't miss. It's very accurate. It tells you what the story's about. Again, gives you a little bit of a sense of the theme. So that's not badly written, but I think the box in general really underplays, maybe not the blur as much, but really underplays how good this movie is, because the stills they picked just feel like real generic cartoon movie to me. I also pulled out Flashpoint Paradox just to say that a couple things. This is another one that it bolds a lot of words to try to get you excited about the big cast of characters, and it also is pretty wordy. There's a lot written here, and this is a complex enough movie. I guess I can kind of see that, but I would almost go more less is more with a thing like this and just go, it's an alternate reality where you get to see Batman's dad as Batman. Watch it. But it's interesting when you get to the end of this. It says it's a bold, emotional vision that will forever alter the landscape of the DC universe. This was the first movie in a continuity, in a shared universe of animated DC movies, and it went for a really long time, and most of them are not great. This is actually one of the better of them. But I think it's kind of interesting that they felt the need to basically do the New 52 thing and be like, it's going to change the face of the DC universe. This is the beginning of it. This isn't, and that's one of the things that's kind of weird about this, is that we're not paving over a timeline that you've been looking at, or or I should say soft rebooting a thing that you've been looking at. This is the beginning. So, I don't know, interesting word choice there. Okay, now I want to go to some more recent releases and see, by contrast, how the blurbs are handled there. So here is the Hellboy reboot that makes Connor want to stab himself every time he thinks about. It's absolutely deranged, and it's great, says CNET. Yeah, a horrifyingly good time, says The Rap. And so this is selling it a lot harder on the blurbs, or not the blurbs, pardon me, the quotes by the by critics, and then again at the bottom it's just you have to kind of squint your eyes to read it. Hellboy is back. So why are we making such a big deal out of this being a reboot? Like, I almost feel like it'd be better if we sold it like there hadn't been Hellboy before, maybe, especially because of the way this turned out. Hellboy is back, and he's on fire. I kind of want that to just be the whole synopsis. Like, just don't give me anything else. And he's on fire. In this action-packed story ripped from the pages, I mean, not really, okay, a lot of things are, but then it goes its own way, and it's too much of a remake of the original. Mike Mignola's still work. The legendary half-demon superhero is called to the English countryside to battle a trio of rampaging giants. There, he discovers the Blood Queen, a Nimue, a resurrected ancient sorceress thirsting to avenge a past betrayal, suddenly caught in a clash between the supernatural and the human. Hellboy is now hell-bent on stopping Nimue without triggering the end of the world. I actually don't mind the way that one's written, even though it's acting, I think, a little bit too much like it's because this is how the movie was sold too. Like, we're being a lot more true to the source material, and you should watch it for that. But I do like how concise that is. There's Birds of Prey. You'll notice it's still in the shrink wrap, and that I only bothered to buy the DVD and not the Blu-ray or the 4K. Packed with crazy fun action, says Sean O'Connell of Cinema Blend. So this one is doing the Deadpool thing where the blurb is going to be written more in the tone of the film. You ever hear the one about the cop, the songbird, the psycho, and the mafia princess? Yes, I did, but I've been trying to excise it from my brain ever since. This twisted tale is told by Harley Quinn herself. Let's have some alliteration because it's got Batman roots, as only Harley can tell it, when Gotham's most nefariously narcissistic villain, nefariously narcissistic. Okay. Yeah, this is written about in line and about as well as that movie. Target on a young girl named Cass. Yeah. Because she's not at all Cassandra Cain. The city is turned upside down looking for her. While on the trail, Harley clashes with the Birds of Prey, but the unlikely foursome may have to team up to take Roman down. So this is an example of a synopsis that basically just gives you the whole movie, and once you've read that, you can really kind of track the whole thing and tell where it's all going, and frankly, it's not too difficult to do that anyway. But anyway, and then we'll look at a movie that I like a lot better than that one. These stacks are kind of falling over now. Here's Joker, a masterpiece. So this is a case where they weren't afraid of that word and just went, hey, somebody called it a masterpiece. I guess we better put that on the box. So I assume that this was being packaged as they knew. Maybe that's how it's always done. I don't know. And this one I did take out of the shrink wrap. And yeah, I didn't just buy the DVD for this one because it was, I think because it was on sale and because it didn't have a lot in the way of special features. And at the time, I was still, Inside Baseball, I was still taking screenshots for Rewind. Now that I'm doing these live and I'm not needing to do that, I'm going to avoid DVD moving forward. But yeah, it's weird. I have some more recent movies just straight on DVD. I might rebuy this and get a nicer copy of it at some point, but this way it's on my shelf. Anyway, failed comedian Arthur Fleck encounters violent thugs while wandering the streets of Gotham City dressed as a clown. It sounds riveting, right? Disregarded by society. Although, how do you sell this? I mean, do you really want to just go, well, here are the two movies that it's that everybody's saying it basically just ripped off. You probably don't want to do that. Fleck begins a slow descent into madness as he transforms into the criminal mastermind known as Joker in director Todd Phillips' thrilling origin story. I guess I don't mind saying origin story because it certainly is that, even if they don't make any more. It kind of watches like, but this kind of reads like beginning of a franchise. I don't like the word mastermind because it's very much not that kind of Joker. He ends up kind of accidentally being the face of a revolution or a street revolt at the end, but he's not like a criminal mastermind. He's not a master manipulator. That's one complaint people had about that movie in thinking of it as a Batman Joker. Like, it watches fine if you're not thinking too much about the Batman of it, but once you throw that in there, would you really want to see this guy go up against that character? Yeah, I don't know. Thomas Lowe, I know Cass is Cassandra in short form, and that she's even called that sometimes in comics and stuff, but I'm just maligning that because, like, she's not that character at all, so it's almost like the box is saying, like, here's this character we made up named Cass. Anyway, I don't know. I'm bitter. Okay, here comes Venom, and the only reason I wanted to show you guys this one is because I think it's hilarious that at the top of the back of the box, it says, the world has enough superheroes. Because, I mean, that's hilarious for a lot of reasons, but first of all, not in this universe, because it's a Spider-Man shared universe that doesn't even have Spider-Man. So the world in universe of Venom does not have superheroes. It has anti-heroes that it throws into cookie-cutter superhero origin stories. And then at the top it says the world has enough superheroes. Almost to say, we realize that way too many of these things have been made, so we're going to try to sell you on, look how different this one is, even while we're going back to the mid-2000s and just going back to that formula and making a movie like we haven't done a million of these after the fact. I think it's also weird that sounds like the tagline for the first Suicide Squad movie. I don't remember if they actually said that, but they really could have, and it kind of sounds like that. I'm not even going to read the blurb for that. I'm just going to move on. I just think the top of that's really funny. Hey, here's the Snyder Cut. Which, again, I got on DVD because I thought I was going to need to pull stills from. I will get a cool copy of this at some point because they did various neat releases for this, I think. So, yeah, nobody make fun of me. It's still in the shrink wrap. Yes, I have a DVD copy of Zack Snyder's Justice League. In Zack Snyder's Justice League. Got to have his name in all caps, just like the movie, because that was the whole selling point of this. I'm actually surprised that on the cover, his name is not as big as Justice League. Determined to ensure Superman's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain. Again, really small print. I'm kind of surprised this even has a synopsis. Bruce Wayne aligns forces with Diana Prince with plans to recruit a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. The task proves more difficult than Bruce imagined, as each of their recruits must face the demons of their own past to transcend that which has held them back, allowing them to come together. Wow, this a really kind of coherent thread to tie the whole story together and really make you wonder even more why it's 4 hours long. Finally, forming an unprecedented League of Heroes. But not like totally unprecedented because we set them all up in the last movie and we were kind of just waiting for this to happen. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that one up because it's a newer movie and it's interesting to see how this thing that fans never thought would even come to fruition and a lot of people were making a big deal out of trying to make happen actually came out. And somebody from Good Day Chicago, whatever that is, one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, even up to last year. Superhero, spaced out, 2 words. Wonder Woman 84. Fast forward to the 1980s. Like, you just watched the last movie. Fast forward. As Wonder Woman's next big screen adventure finds her facing a wide array of foes, including Maxwell Lord and Cheetah. That's it. That's the whole synopsis. Sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon, because the movie kind of feels like that. But isn't it weird to have a movie that's as long as this with a synopsis that's one sentence and just gives you the time period it takes place in, because it's a period piece, and the villains. Okay, hilarious. Well, we're already at an hour 15, and I still have quite a few of these left. I'm going to try to blow through these a little quicker if I can. Again, feel free to pause and watch the rest of this later, but we haven't gotten yet to the really kind of much hated and dismissed superhero movies, and that'll be fun to get to. So here are some kind of more recent things, or things in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Here is the one for Big Hero 6. This is another one that has a really, really tiny print that's like just insanely difficult to look at. I'm not even going to read it. The blurb for this, it's like, we know nobody's going to read this. Why did you bother to pay somebody to write it then? All you had to do was at the top say, the quote from the critic, Big Hero 6 has it all. Humor, heart, and huggability. Sometimes I think critics just try too hard to sound, I don't know, poetic, or to have a soundbite that would make you, or I guess I shouldn't say soundbite, but a quote that would like make you want to click on the thing. It's kind of like clickbait, but not in the article. But I just think that's all you need, because I think people are going to buy this if they haven't seen it in the theater based on it's a cute robot guy, and it looks like a fun 3D movie, and it's Disney, but it looks kind of Pixar-y, and that's it. That's all you need. I'm not sure what the point was of even having a blurb for that one. Doctor Strange has kind of a fun box. I wanted to bring this up to show you a more recent MCU movie, because these more and more have stopped having synopses, but as much. Although this one actually has a longer one than I thought it did. But what's cool about the presentation of this, of course, is that it is like some others we talked about, also trying to be to reflect the tone and the style of the movie that this is, but visually. So it's doing the kind of world-bending thing from the mirror verse. But it's, of course, the synopsis isn't going to be written in the mood or tone of the movie. So I actually said something kind of wrong earlier, I guess. This was only a few years ago, and they're still saying, oh no, okay, this at least didn't say from the studio that brought you. This one says, from Marvel Studios comes Doctor Strange, the story of world-famous neurosurgeon Dr. Stephen Strange, whose life changes forever after a horrific car accident renders his hands useless. This is kind of surreal, going back and looking at this again, since I just reviewed this a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't really looking at the box. When traditional medicine fails him, if you haven't watched that yet, by the way, I did just review this movie recently. He travels to remote Kamatage in search of a cure, but instead discovers the mystical arts and becomes a powerful sorcerer battling dark forces bent on destroying our reality. Not a bad synopsis. Or I guess more of a logline. Tells you what the movie's about, gives you a sense of whether it might be to your taste or not, if you're into magic stuff and fantasy. But again, small enough and cordoned off in a place where you might not even notice it's there. So these things are getting more and more obligatory all the time. Okay, everybody give me just a second. I'm going to see if I can move without messing up any of my cords here. And I'm going to move some movies out of my way. All right. So here's another kind of early 2010s movie. Here's Chronicle. And this one at the top has a quote from a critic from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Now, this movie was liked well enough. I'm kind of surprised that we had to go that obscure of a publication. Exhilarating, start to finish. That's a fine thing to put on the box, I guess. Again, it is a little bit vague. That one could go either way. That could read, nobody cared about this movie, or it wasn't very good, or it could read, it's a blockbuster. I don't know. Whether you see this movie or not, you want to call it a blockbuster. Clear your thoughts for a mesmerizing mind bender, Rolling Stone. Okay, so then we go to Rolling Stone. Weird. Is the Philadelphia Inquirer actually a publication people read and I just don't realize it? That'll blow you away. Seen through the lens of a troubled teen's video camera, yet filled with eye-popping action and jaw-dropping special effects, Chronicle is as real as it gets. When three ordinary high school friends make an extraordinary discovery, they acquire amazing abilities beyond their understanding. But as their powers develop, so do their darker sides. Fun, harmless pranks soon lead to much riskier activities as the boys' gifts and their lives spin dangerously out of control. So that's not a badly written blurb, but I think it's interesting that this is not at all in the tone of the movie itself, which is, of course, a much more serious and kind of, for lack of a better word, depressing sort of story. It's real bleak. And it's interesting that it's being sold a lot more like a blockbuster. So everything that's written there is true, and it does give you a good sense of what the movie is about, and even, if not thematic stuff, at least a little bit in the way of characterization without giving too much away. So I like that about it. But what's kind of strange is it's like... And it even gives you a sense of the found footage thing. So it's sort of like this is what the movie is really going to be like, except totally not at all, because this is not going to be a fun popcorn movie, and it reads like a fun popcorn movie. It's almost like somebody saw... what's that other found footage movie that J.J. Abrams, Cloverfield, that he produced? It's like somebody saw Cloverfield and decided to write a blurb like it was for that movie. Okay, so let's go back to the early 90s, early to mid 90s, and look at some of the kind of pseudo superhero movies and how they were sold. Here is Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty. Siskel and Ebert, 2 thumbs up. The picture is extraordinary, and that's all they feel the need to do here, which I think is really cool back this far. It doesn't have to mention Batman. This movie gets made partly because of that, and was sold a little bit on, if you liked Batman, you'll like this movie, and it basically goes, here's a comic strip you've heard of. The movie looks like that comic strip. On the front, it looks like the cover of a comic and not the cover of a movie. And of course, that's how the movie was sold. That was the movie posters. And then on the back, it just has a number of quotes from critics, and that's it. So I like the confidence of that. Then we have The Phantom. Thrilling, says Jeannie Stalt from NBC TV. I just brought this one out because I like the presentation of the back of it. It's, your eyes are drawn to the blurb as opposed to moving away from it in case nobody cares about this and isn't going to read it. So that's probably smart for a thing like this, because this movie didn't sell great. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but the box kind of looks like maybe we'll make our money back on home video, where it's making the Phantom look really epic and not cheesy, the way he's sitting in his chair with the light beaming down on it. It kind of screams, if you didn't give this a chance in the theater, you should give it a chance now, and it's trying to get you to read the blurb by the kind of staircase down thing it's doing on the side, in case you don't know anything about this movie and you actually want to try it out. So I'm not going to read the blurb for that one. I just wanted to talk about the presentation visually. Here's The Crow. This is a weird disc because it's in this like oversized box for no good reason, where it's got, I guess it's a little more heavy duty, where you're not as likely to break the box, but I always wondered why it was so thick. So this one has a lot of quotes on the front, and then on the back, does it keep doing that? Yeah, Brandon Lee is sensational, Rolling Stone. This one has a real minimal short one. Catch the explosive hit that thrilled moviegoers and critics everywhere. I threw this one in because this one is in the past tense. This isn't pretending like the movie just came out and you went and bought it and this is the VHS, but just pretend like this is a VHS, but you're watching it on DVD. That thrilled past tense moviegoers and critics everywhere. Brandon Lee plays Eric Draven, a young rock guitarist who, along with his fiancée, is brutally killed by a ruthless gang of criminals. Exactly 1 year after his death, Eric returns, watched over by a hypnotic crow. Hypnotic is an interesting word choice. To seek revenge, battling the evil crime lord. The evil crime lord. Not going to give his name, just the evil crime lord. Not an evil crime lord, and his band of thugs who must answer for their crimes. So yeah, gives you a good sense of what the movie is actually about, and that is a revenge thriller, and it's interesting, though, that being in the retroactive, in the past tense like that, making a big deal out of Brandon Lee's performance at the top, it doesn't say anything about this being posthumous, which that he died making this movie, which you might think would be there, and you might say, oh, that's in poor taste, but I could have seen the word posthumous being used. I'm just a little surprised. I'm not saying it should have been or shouldn't have been. I'm just a little surprised that it didn't, because I'm not sure what the point was of being retroactive about it if you weren't gonna do that. Daniel Davis says that The Phantom did sell well on video. I seem to recall that, but I wasn't, or thought I did, but I wasn't sure. Okay, so Watchmen is an amusing case to me because it reads like any other superhero movie synopsis. And again, it really goes to the blockbuster place. It's real short, and there's no sense at all that there's any philosophy or heavy subject material here, that's a thinking story. I mean, like, I realize Zack Snyder made it, but most of that was arguably left intact in the actual story, and this is just sold like a Zack Snyder movie. Someone's killing our super space heroes. The year is 1985, and super heroes have banded together to respond to the murder of one of their own. They soon uncover a sinister plot that puts all of humanity in grave danger. The superheroes fight to stop the impending doom, only to find themselves a target for annihilation. But if our superheroes are gone, who will save us? It's not even exactly what Watchmen is about, right? It's who watches the Watchmen. It's like, are these even heroes in the first? If our superheroes are gone, who will save us? Like, I mean, I guess kind of. But that one reads a little bit like somebody watched a trailer, or somebody read the Cliff Notes version, or somebody watched a music video version, like with the sound off or something. It's just nuts how pedestrian that reads based on a movie that was adapted from one of a lot of people's, like, in Time Magazine's top 100 novels of all time. Not just graphic novels, but novels. So yeah, that one's hilarious. Here's Constantine. A smart ride. There's both eye and mind candy in this cleverly berserk Spawn of Blade Runner. I brought this one up because I think Spawn is used very intentionally there. This is a thing based on Judeo-Christian hell mythology, and yes, it came out almost a decade after Spawn, but that character was still enough in the public eye, and that was really the only comic book movie based on this kind of material. So yeah, I think the word choice there is totally intentional. That was written by a writer for Time Magazine. And then the only other thing I want to mention about this one is that it spends a lot of its time bringing up other things. The Matrix is mentioned because you've seen Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, and this thing is just not real confident. It kind of reads like, we don't know if anybody is actually going to watch this and will want to buy it. And from DC Comics Vertigo Hellblazer graphic novels, so yeah, I guess it's like the selling points for this is I said mentions other things. It mentions The Matrix. I guess the selling point for this is it's based on comic source material, and that's getting more and more popular now after Spider-Man. And we can do darker stuff because Daredevil came out, and it's got Keanu Reeves, and you liked him in The Matrix. I just want to read the quote at the top for Hancock. Roger Ebert again. Lots of Ebert quotes. If Ebert liked your superhero movie, it's a big deal because it was already getting too oversaturated even before the MCU for a lot of people. And Ebert was maybe lamenting that a little bit. Now, he liked comics. He was not a prude. He liked what he called good trash. Not that superhero movies are always even trash, but he was up for a good popcorn movie that wasn't the smartest, most thought-provoking, most literary thing. But it was a big deal, nevertheless, if you liked your superhero movie. I have been waiting for this for years. A superhero movie, he spells superhero as one word, where the actions of the superheroes have consequences in the real world. Hancock is a lot of fun. It's like you forgot about that second act. Academy Award nominee Will Smith. Interesting that Pursuit of Happiness is brought up, I guess just because he won the Oscar Best Actor. Stars in this action-packed comedy as Hancock. I'm glad that it comes right out and says comedy, because you kind of need to know that going in. A sarcastic, hard-living, and misunderstood superhero who has fallen out of favor with the public. Pardon me. When Hancock grudgingly agrees to an extreme makeover from idealistic publicist Ray Embry, his life and reputation rise from the ashes and all seems right again until he meets a woman. Oh, I'm sorry, with similar powers to his, and the key to his secret past. Yeah, I would maybe have left that second part out, because that's when the movie kind of takes a turn and gets real convoluted and feels like a different thing. I'm not sure that part would get anybody to want to see this. But once again, real small print. We don't know if anybody's going to read the blurb. Oh, somebody will. Captain Logan's going to. He's going to do 2 whole hours on it. Okay, you guys ready for the Maligned movies? For movies with a reputation. Okay, here we go. Howard the Duck. The Marvel Comics character comes to life. Right at the top, we gotta make a big deal. It's based on Marvel Comics. People like Marvel things now. One of the most talked about movies of all time. Howard the Duck lands on DVD for the first time in an all-new special edition. So this is selling specifically this as, we actually have special features on a Howard the Duck disc, and it is retroactive because isn't it cool that we finally gave it this treatment? And that was cool. There's a good featurette on this. But it's funny because I don't think this reads as much in denial as the producers of this movie in the special features. But, you're not going to expect the box to come right out and say, one of the most infamous movies of all time. But it might as well say that, right? Talked about movies. Yeah, we all know what talked about means. And I think that's hilarious. There's more to that one. I'm going to keep going. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. My copy of this, by the way, is signed by the guy who played Nuclear Man. And I cannot remember where I got my hands on this, but I think it's one of only 2 or 3 signed DVDs I have, or Blu-rays. And I have a lot of signatures from conventions, but I haven't done it a lot with movies. Christopher Reeve is still giving this character his all, says Janet Maston of the New York Times. And again, that must have been a period quote. So it's like, yeah, that's the thing this has going for it. As well, Christopher Reeve still feels like Superman. Boy, that's desperate, isn't it? Christopher Reeve not only dons the title hero's cape for the 4th time, but also helped develop the movie's provocative theme, nuclear disarmament. It already feels like a disaster. Like, even if you haven't seen the movie, if you just started reading this, like, well, I never looked at that 4th Superman movie. I wonder what that's about. Oh, no! To make the world safe for nuclear arms merchants, Lex Luthor creates a new being to challenge the Man of Steel, the radiation-charged Nuclear Man. That's redundant. He's called Nuclear Man. He's going to have radiation. The two foes clash in an explosive extravaganza that sees Superman save the Statue of Liberty, plug a volcanic eruption of Mount Ed. Now you're just spoiling the movie. You're spoiling what actual spectacle there is in this film, and rebuild the demolished Great Wall of China. Your quest for excitement is over. I love that blurb. I love everything about it. I'm just going to move right along. That one's fantastic. The 1990 Captain America movie. To Captain America, wherever he is, we're all back in the fight. This is exactly what Tom was talking about earlier, and I didn't remember that this one had that, where it puts a quote from the movie at the top as if a critic said it, and for a minute it makes you go like, oh, hey, wait, where's the critic's name? And then you go, oh, right, a critic wouldn't say that. That's just a quote from the movie. I don't mind that. I think it is kind of weird that it's almost, it reads almost misleading, but I don't know to what end, really. Like, it's not malicious that you would think for a second that that's a quote. Unless the idea is it draws your eyes to it because maybe somebody liked it, and then they couldn't find that quote, so they just put a quote that makes it sound like a Captain America thing. The only thing I wanted to mention about the blurb for this one is to say it calls it a cult classic at the bottom. And just because a movie is obscure and people have forgotten about it and you've decided to put it on this format finally, in a nice-looking box, may I add, that is misleading because it makes the movie look way better than it is, but just because it's obscure doesn't mean it's a cult classic. It doesn't mean that there's a cult following for this movie. This does not have that. Arguably, the next movie has that more. Dolph Lundgren's Punisher. I think there is a contingency of people like me that think that this is a kind of overlooked movie that's better than... It's not great by any means, but better than... It's lampooned. And I put this in here because it is kind of lampooned, but it's better than people give it credit for. The avenging angel of Marvel Comics fame comes brilliantly to life. Again, you got to throw Marvel in there because people like those movies now. In this searing action-adventure thriller. Dolph Lundgren stars as Frank Castle, a veteran cop who loses his entire family to a mafia car bomb. Only his ex-partner believes Castle survived the blast to become the Punisher, a shadowy, invincible fighter. This is wordy. We got too much of a synopsis in this one, I think. But anyway, let's move along, shall we? Here's Masters of the Universe, another kind of infamously not great movie, which I like better than a lot of folks, I think. I was surprisingly positive on this in the rewind, at least relatively. Only the universe could hold adventure this big. That's not quote. There's not quotes around it or anything. They've just decided to say that to sell it. And that could be the logline. That could be it. You didn't really necessarily need anything else. It's selling it real hard on Skeletor. And that's probably the right way to sell this. Planet Eternia and the Castle of Grayskull are under threat from the evil Skeletor, who wants to take over the planet. Nothing about what this is based on. It's acting like it's not a adaptation of anything. Like, this is Masters of the Universe. A group of freedom fighters led by the heroic He-Man are accidentally transported to Earth by a mysterious cosmic key, which holds the power to make Skeletor all-powerful. Once on Earth, He-Man joins alliances with two teenagers. Yeah, he does, as they attempt to find the key and return home. Kind of bland. Doesn't really make me want to watch the movie. I think the cover does a much better job of that. But anyway, here's Judge Dredd. This one is more amusing because of what's on the front of the box, so I'll show you that. This movie is called Stallone. Oh, wait, no, it's called Judge Dredd. But the only reason you'll watch this is because of Stallone. Because we don't trust the source material, so we didn't really make like a true Judge Dredd movie. I like this movie a little bit better than some people do, but right on the front, they just kind of slap Judge Dredd fans in the face by not even having his helmet on. And then on the back, I think they think they're making up for it because they've got a screenshot with 3 judges that all have their helmets on. Non-stop action, daily variety. That's the quote you use for a movie that is maligned and didn't do super well at the box office. Big screen superstar Sylvester Stallone. That's a mouthful. Powers his non-stop action. What? Hit. Okay, this is a terrible font that's very difficult to read, and this is a very short synopsis, but you're not going to get very far in it before you stop, because it's hard to even read it. Amazing special effects. In a time where all-powerful and coldly efficient judges, quote, act with the supreme authority of both the police force and legal system, Judge Dredd is the most feared law enforcer of them all. But when a former judge hatches a sinister plot to overthrow the government and eliminate the judges, Dredd is famed for murder. Get ready for an explosive action-adventure thrill ride. We should have counted them. As Dredd does whatever it takes to restore justice. That's not a great blurb. That's not going to make a lot of people want to actually look at this movie. And I bet 3 people in the whole of history have read it. Speak of the devil, literally. Look, it's Spawn. Okay, so Spawn was sold as the special effects movie of the year, which I know sounds really silly when you go look at it, but keep in mind that it was a really major group of special effects artists that worked on this movie, but they had to really rush it and cut corners, and they didn't have the money that they should have to make this. This is sold, once again, on DVDs are cool, guys. And this was actually... they actually took the Laserdisc and basically copied it to DVD, and so you get the commentary from the Laserdisc on here, and I wonder if the special effects, or the special features are also that way, but it just gives you a big litany of special features, and then this is the tiny synopsis on the side. Imagine a creature on the verge of creation. I'm imagining it. Nope, it's really vague, and I can't picture that. Because you weren't very descriptive. And, also, the verge of creation. It'd be really boring if your movie was about a creature on the verge of creation. It's not even an origin film. It's like the prologue of an origin film. From comic book legend Todd McFarlane comes the live-action special effects movie event of the year. You put that on the cover, and you took up, like, 8 words of your 45-word synopsis with those words again. Spawn! Michael Jai White, John Leguizamo, and Martin Sheen star in a battle beyond good, beyond evil, and beyond imagination. It sounds as genericified as they made Spawn. So, good job. You know what? That actually matches what the movie is and the tone of it and everything. Here comes now the only movie I ever gave a 0 to on Superhero Rewind. On the technicality of Turbo is neither a movie or a Power Rangers thing. Look at all the text! Holy crap! Who's gonna sit and read? It's a Power Rangers movie. It's a children's film. I should have pulled out. What is the synopsis for the first movie, the 95 movie? Let's compare them. I didn't pull it out. I'm going to. Everybody give me a second. I'm going to go find it. Hold on now. Hold on, everybody. Oh, they did the same thing with this. and they even kind of made it meander around the screenshots, just like they did with this. It's so clearly whoever did the graphics for this, it was like the same guy. Look at that. Okay, I'm not going to read both of these. I just think it's hilarious that it has that much text. At the top, they did the thing Tom was talking about again for the 95 Power Rangers movie, where it says, "You ooze, you lose." And underneath that, I wanted to say Hollywood Reporter or something. And then, with this one, it actually is a quote. "A high-spirited fantasy adventure," says Daniel Hunter from The Hollywood Reporter. That is surprisingly more detailed than I would have expected for this. Like, I don't agree that it's adventurous enough, but I guess it is a fantasy. So, okay. Okay, now I'm just making a mess of discs down here. Look, guys, I've somehow been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes. I apologize. I have a tendency to get way too thorough. But I got one stack left, and we're going to do it. So here we go. If you've been watching this whole time, you're a trooper, and I really appreciate you. If you haven't, I understand. And again, if you came in late or you're watching after the fact, pace yourself. Take your time. This could have been 5 different videos. Okay. That's why it's a podcast now. All right, here we go. Superhero movie. Now we're just getting into all these movies that I reviewed a million years ago on Superhero Rewind and tore my teeth into. With, I mean, this one not so much because I pretended to love it as an April Fool's Day prank. With great power come laughs. Stacey Lane Wilson of Sci-Fi Weekly should have been fired over that quote, because that's not even decent grammar. That's almost as bad as like Sonic Heroes. Look at all those Eggman's robots. With great power come laughs. Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four will never be the same after this outrageously funny spoof of your favorite comic book movies. Nope, they're still the same. This didn't really make anybody look at it differently. This made everybody go, that's what you do with these old parody movies, is you just take things people have seen recently and you make fart noises. That's basically this movie. It's in places cleverer than that, but overall, it's not good. Drake Bell stars, and wasn't that weird too, that Drake Bell then later got to voice Spider-Man? Stars as a nerdy high school student bitten by a genetically altered dragonfly. He stumbles hilariously. You know that you've got a problem when the movie has to tell you how funny it is? Through the process of becoming a crime fighter, and as his new powers grow, so do the laughs. Well, you might as well just say, it's funny, you guys. It is. It is. It's so funny. You won't even believe it. It's so funny, you guys. I'm not even reading any more of that. Elektra. Tom just put in a $5 super chat. The back of the box for Spider-Man Homecoming or Far From Home is printed upside down. You should look at it. Oh, that's fun. I'm not going to get up again because we're almost done finally, but I didn't realize that. I actually, you know, it's funny, I don't think I even have that box because I have a special edition for those that wouldn't have that. That must be why I didn't pull those down. Okay, anyway, Elektra. a sleek action adventure. Again, a little generic, but not flat out wrong. There's some sleekness in a couple scenes, I guess. It's not overall sleek, I guess. It's pretty generic the way it's shot. Superstar Jennifer Garner proves that looks can kill, it says in italics, as the sexiest action hero ever to burst from the pages of Marvel Comics. Let's count all the sexy action heroes, the sexy female action heroes at this point in time by 2004 to burst out of Marvel Comics. Well, you had some X-Men. And that's what you had. So, it's also arbitrary who you decide is the sexiest, and isn't that really shallow of us? Like, that's what we're resorting to with this movie because we know it didn't perform. So we're like, it's sort of like saying, look how funny superhero movie is. Look how sexy our action hero is. She's so sexy, you guys. Restored to life after sustaining mortal wounds in Daredevil, which is more of a connection to that movie than the movie itself makes because of the deleted scene that's gone now. Elektra now lives only for death. Actually, is this the... No, this is the theatrical version. I also have a director's cut, I think, that adds that scene back in, but this is not that. Now lives only for death is the world's most lethal assassin, but her latest assignment will force her to make a fateful decision in the ultimate battle between good and evil. It's just so dime a dozen. Okay, Green Hornet. Green Hornet. This is a movie that I've been meaning to do a rewind on for a long time. I almost did this years ago, and I've never gotten to it. So maybe, I mean, nobody's clamoring for this, but it might be interesting to revisit. I didn't hate this as much, not even as much as I expected to. I didn't hate this. It's not what I want from a Green Hornet movie, but there's some fun things in it, I suppose. A surprising blast of super fun. I like that they used the word from G4's Attack of the Show. That's how long ago this was. Yeah, G4. I like that the word surprising was used in that quote. That's probably smart for people that didn't want to watch this because making a goofball comedy with Seth Rogen was not the thing to do with Green Hornet. And again, they might as well just put up a neon sign saying, we know people didn't go to see this movie. Britt Reed is a slacker by day, party animal by night, until he finds a serious career that's seriously cool, crime-fighting action hero. This is horribly written. As the Green Hornet, he teams up with gadget whiz and martial arts master Kato to take down LA's underworld. Also starring Cameron Diaz and Christoph Waltz. Watch it because people you've heard of are in it. Okay, next up, we have just a few more guys. Look, it's Green Lantern. Okay, let's see how we put this on DVD after we thought we were going to start the DC shared universe with it, and then nobody cared, and we realized that we spent way too much money on merchandising. Action-packed. So you guys are seeing a pattern, right? If you make a big deal out of how action-packed your movie is, you know that people don't care. Ryan Reynolds is the perfect Green Lantern, says Rossiter Drake of the San Francisco Examiner. I'm sure that person knows a lot about Green Lantern. The perfect Green Lantern. You know, he's like Christopher Reeve playing Superman. Like, there's just no other choice. There's no other choice for Green Lantern. You know, a mantle that there's like a 1,000 characters of. In a universe as vast as it is mysterious, that we don't get to see much of in the movie, an elite force of protectors for peace and justice has existed for centuries. They are the Green Lantern Corps. When a new enemy called Parallax threatens to destroy the universe, their fate and the fate of Earth, lie in the hands of the Corps' newest recruit, the first human ever selected, Hal Jordan. Okay, that's all I'm going to read of that. It's pretty short, and again, tiny print, and yeah, they just know there's no hope. They're kind of not even trying. Okay, here's another kind of maligned movie that people don't like. I like this better than a lot of people. If you watch it as parody, I think it's okay. Look how tiny the print is. And I like the visual presentation, that it looks kind of like a Frank Miller comic. I mean, Frank Miller directed it, so they're trying to make it look more like one of his comics than they are the actual spirit. But the box is on point with the feel of the movie, but, like, why even put it there? I can't read it. Beyond the grave, beyond the law. Is that the new catchphrase? All right. Hulk, 2003. Special effects are astonishing, says Jeffrey Lyons. So this movie is better than I think a lot of people gave it credit for, but a lot of people really didn't like it, and the box the box knows. But also, whoever was hired to do this one did not see the movie. Get ready for larger-than-life action as the Marvel superhero trademark, space, superhero, and trademark, bursts from comic book pages to the big screen in The Hulk. The movie's called Hulk. The Hulk. There's no the. It's called Hulk. Eric Bana stars as David Banner. No, he doesn't. He stars as Bruce Banner. David Banner is his father, who's the villain of the film. This person hasn't looked at a poster to see what the title is and hasn't watched the film. Were they a big fan of the TV show in the 70s and they knew David Banner from that? What? Eric Bana stars as David Banner, whose involvement in a freak lab accident exposes him to gamma radiation. As a result, whenever the mild-mannered man becomes angry, he transforms into a huge rampaging creature that destroys everything in his path. So far, it could just be the TV show. Banner's ex-girlfriend, Betty Ross, well, you at least know that Jennifer Connelly played her, believes that his father may hold the answer to the desperate situation. What's his dad's name? Person that wrote the blurb? What's his name? But can she make the connection in time to save a terrified world? That's amazing. That's my favorite. That's hands down my favorite. Rise of the Silver Surfer. Fantastic 2-disc set. This one has I was gonna say the longer version, but now I'm conflating it with the first Fantastic Four movie, which does have if not a director's cut, just a different cut. But I'm not sure if that's what this is, or if this was just a souped up, special edition with extra scenes. But I used to have a different copy of this, and now I have this one. I'm not even totally sure why I pulled this one out. Now that I'm looking at this. Let's see. Brace yourself for even more super-powered thrills and spectacular DVD action. Spectacular DVD action. We still got to make a big deal out of the format. Right before we had the 3-second war between Blu-ray and HD DVD. With the Power Cosmic Edition of Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Okay, so this is why I picked this one. Because this is not a blurb for this movie. It's almost like it expects that you bought it already, and you'll buy it again for all the special features, because the whole blurb is just about the special features, and that it's a DVD, and that's it. So that's interesting. Okay, here is a really rare DVD that I currently have 2 copies. Sent these to me, and it was really cool of them. At one point I brought this up, and that this is a hard DVD to get, and I got sent a copy by I want to say, I hope I'm not wrong about this, Jeffrey Patron and Back Studios. And so I have now a couple copies of hold on, I'm out of order here. Where is it? Okay, I'll go back here in a second. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a TV movie that was supposed to be the pilot for a TV show that didn't get picked up. And I actually was preparing for a rewind for this before I had to stop doing the written version. And I will bring this back soon. I've got notes taken on it. All I got to do is watch it again. But anyway, feel the fury. Brace yourself for Nick Fury's action-packed adventure. This was late 90s, 97, I think? Maybe 98? Baywatch icon David Hasselhoff stars as the hard-boiled, cigar-chomping director of S.H.I.E.L.D., an ultra-secret counterterrorism strike force. Fury is called upon when his latest nemesis, the sexy, sinister Viper, hatches a plan to annihilate all of Manhattan. Armed with a stockpile of high-tech weapons, Fury is the city's only hope in the full-length debut of this Marvel Comics hero, which kind of reads almost like the blurb thinks it's going to go to series. like a decade after the fact. Sounds kind of weird. This is a movie I've not seen. This one was sent to me by Tom, who's been giving us some super chats this evening. This is a Michelle Yeoh movie. Pardon me. It's getting late. Silverhawk. And I really want to watch this and do a rewind on this at some point. So this one could also be in the pipeline in the not too distant future. The law has limits. She doesn't. Lulu Wong lives a double life, part urban social butterfly, part vigilante superhero. Armed with ancient fighting techniques and high-tech hardware, Lulu is a beautiful masked millionaire battling to defeat a greedy entrepreneur intent on enslaving the world. Based on a comic book, not the popular comic, not like beloved fan favorite comic, not based on a cult classic comic. Just look, this did have source material. Nobody read it, but it does. Based on a comic book, Silverhawk is an edge-of-your-seat thrill ride. What is that, 8 now? Packed with fast cars, gravity-defying martial arts fights, and at the center of it all, one sexy heroine. So once again, we got to sell it on thrill ride. There's a sexy lady, and there's familiar things in the synopsis, because like she's rich and there's an evil tycoon, and nothing makes a person want to watch a movie more than you've seen all this before. Okay, then here's Meteor Man. I've also not seen this. This is Robert Townsend. We were making a big deal out of this guy. He had kind of a comedic career for a minute, and in movies, I think. I know I saw stuff with him when I was a kid, but I don't remember what. But anyway, this one's funny because of how short the synopsis is. Writer-director Robert Townsend leads an all-star cast in this magical inner-city fairy tale about a substitute teacher who finds himself endowed with superpowers after being hit by a meteor. I'm sure that makes people want to rush out and watch this, but at least it's big enough that you can read it. Let's go to another movie in that same sort of vein that I've reviewed somewhat recently. Here comes Steel with Shaq. Again, we gotta put it's sort of like with Sylvester Stallone. We gotta put his name right at the top. Is it Shaq? Steel. The box knows what it is. Like it's just selling the actor. With an awesome, at the top, a funny, entertaining, good versus evil movie. Pretty generic. With awesome weaponry and big-hearted style, NBA superstar Shaquille O'Neal, because that's in the front. He's a popular basketball player. You've seen him. You've heard of him. Unleashes a Shaq attack of heroics and humor. Yeah, it's hilarious. In this jovial action-adventure based on the popular DC Comics characters. Okay, well, Steel had his moment in the sun, certainly, in comics, along with a few other characters that we made up right at the same time during Death of Superman. But who else is in this movie that anybody has heard of and that you could call popular? The popular DC Comics characters. Okay, Justice, Safe Streets, Payback, metallurgist John Henry Irons, and you'll really believe he can do that job, vows to claim them all when a renegade military reject puts new superweapons in dangerous hands. Helped by an electronics whiz and an imaginative scrap metal worker, Irons becomes Steel. You heard that sentence right, folks. Irons becomes Steel. Wearing body armor, welding a fearsome electro hammer, and wielding a fearsome, he welded it too, electro hammer, and riding a gadget-packed motorcycle, he's ready to wage war if he can fix the untimely glitches in his untested gear. That was like 5 minutes of the movie, wasn't it? You all be cool now, the good guy hero tells the two crime victims he rescues. Wait, now it's reading like a storybook? The good guy hero tells... it's like I'm reading this to my 3-year-old at bedtime. And the rest of it's not written like that. There'll be a lot of thrilling before Steel himself can start chillin'. Okay, I changed my mind. That's my favorite. That one's my favorite. That's even better than Hulk. That's my favorite. Okay, obligatory, obnoxious, not good movie, Super Buddies. I did a rewind on this. It's got way too much text on the back. All it needs to say is, yep, we made another one of these, and this one's about superheroes. Because all these buddies think we did pirates, we did Halloween villain or characters. Watch the fur fly. No. As a new breed of superhero is born in Disney's fun-filled epic adventure. An ordinary day at Fernfield Farms turns extraordinary when these dogs, I don't want to read their names again, discover mysterious rings that grant them each a unique superpower. You know, I'm just getting PTSD revisiting this movie, so I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's just ridiculous how much text there is that really, I have to be the only person that's ever read any of the text on the back of this box. Okay, I hope that was a fun exercise for folks besides just myself, and I'm going to go ahead and bid everybody farewell right after I say once again, thanks so much for spending some of your time with me, for listening to the podcast, and for supporting the channel in any way that you do that, and making it possible for me to continue weekly. Now, I'm doing my level best to do this every week as much as possible. Superhero Rewind Unscripted. It's still crazy to me that this has been as viable as it has, and you guys are wonderful. So thanks a lot for your patience and for your participation. And I want to flip back to the one that's to the scene that doesn't have this box on it, but let's see if I take this off. Yeah, because for some reason I'm like in Letterbox right now. I don't know what that's about. I'm gonna have to fix this later. Okay, whatever. I guess we'll just have this stupid. Let's see. Let's put a better box up while I finish here. We'll make it Doctor Strange, because I reviewed that a couple weeks ago. Anyway, folks, if you are so inclined, you can become a patron if you're not currently one at patreon.com/geekvolution, and at the $5 tier, you can put in tweet-linked reviews for any movie that I review here on the program. This time we did something a little bit different. Next week we'll get back to movies, and I'll reveal what it's going to be here in a second. So of course I don't have tweet-linked reviews this week, and I'm not going to have to put anything on the ranked list or rate anything. We'll do all that again next time when we review a movie. But I do want to say thanks to all of our patrons, but especially our Patreon producers. At the $10 tier, you can become a Patreon producer, and I'm about to add the perk back in that will put you on the Rewind selection board. So most weeks I'll have a list of movies that you can choose from, and let me go ahead and tell you what the next one's going to be after this next week. So I have chosen the one for next time. It's going to be a request that was given to me a long time ago that I'm finally getting to, but for the Rewind request board, or pardon me, the Rewind selection board at the $10 tier, you're going to get to pick from some movies that I've reviewed already for re-review going way back to the first couple of years. So Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, because I only did like 15 minutes on that, and all I talked about was what I wanted to see the reboot do as opposed to what that did. I've never really properly reviewed that movie. So Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which I kind of expect will get picked, but I wanted to put that on there. The Daredevil Director's Cut, Justice League New Frontier, which I only did like 7 minutes on. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I'm sure I'll have more to say. X2, and Richard Donner Superman. So if you would like to vote in the poll for that, which I'll have out in about a week. Maybe I'll go ahead and put that out this week and get ahead on it. You can become a member at the $10 tier. And now I'd like to say thanks to all of our Patreon producers right now, including a new patron, Trilemma. Thanks very much. Thomas Edchill, The Day Ghost, Super Billy, Michael Martin, Bag Studios, Joshua Gulasano, John Sandoval, Jajira, Hot Soup, Goofster123, Elliot Slater, Dylan, Muschiello, Chewbacca's Lover, and Blake. Okay, next time I'm going to get back to something I haven't done in a really long time, which is a rewind on, and again, unscripted, on a movie that's not a superhero movie. We're going to get back to science fiction rewind, although I don't know if I'm going to keep that title, or if I'm going to go to rewind requested, because we've got several requests in a few different genres, and I want to be able to keep it open to other things than just science fiction. But anyway, next time I'm going to finally get back to Star Wars. It's been at least 2, if not 3 years since I did episode 1, and I have requests from Back Studios on all 3 of the prequels. So next week, if all goes according to plan, I'm going to finally sit down and do a Rewind Unscripted on Attack of the Clones. So look forward to that. I thought now was the time for that, since we have Obi-Wan Kenobi airing right now, and that is a direct sequel to that material. So that's what we're doing next Sunday. It won't be a superhero thing, and then we will get back to superhero movies right after that, and let the Rewind Selection Board pick one of those 5 movies that I have reviewed before. Everybody, thanks so very much for watching. Originally, I had planned on taking more questions and things at the end, but I went a real long time, and I did interact with you guys a little bit here and there. So hopefully I did enough of that, and thanks for being here, everybody. Hope you had a good time. I did. I can't believe we went for 2 hours, but I hope you found this entertaining, because some of these boxes I thought were really funny and just kind of interesting, and it was sort of a weird thing to make a video about that I don't know that anybody else has ever made a video about, so I wanted to do that. Okay, thanks for being here, folks. I will see you again next time. I was Captain Logan. Bye, everybody.